The story begins with a phone call that changes the gravitational pull of the Bunker household. A long-distance ring from Santa Barbara, California, brings news that Michael Stivic the Meathead, to Archie's permanently sharpened tongue, has been offered an associate professorship with better pay, new status, and the promise of a sun-drenched academic future. The elation ignites instantly, and Michael and Gloria, California, Here I Come, becomes less a song lyric than a life decision. But the same call lands on Archie's nerves like an earthquake tremor. To him, the West Coast is a distant shelf at the edge of the continent, where he insists fruits and nuts will slide into the Pacific the moment God gets tired of them. In Archie's Queens living room at 704 Hauser Street, the family's tight orbit of routines, jokes, grievances, and affections the prospect of losing Gloria and baby Joey feels less like a move and more like a rupture. He grabs for control the only ways he knows, mangling facts about geology and providence, elevating every inconvenience into apocalypse, and repositioning himself as the last man left defending common sense against a world gone sideways. Yet beneath the bluster is the unmistakable panic of a grandfather sensing the house will soon be quieter than he can bear. Practicalities accelerate the plot. The Stivics' landlord, George Jefferson, has found buyers who want to move in almost immediately. That means Michael and Gloria, in an unanticipated boomerang, must haul their boxes back to Archie's for a final stint of cohabitation. The cultural trench lines reappear overnight, Archie's barber chair rituals, and Three Stooges reruns square off against Michael's Hamlet and progressive sensibilities. Edith tries to keep the air breathable with Pie's patience and the calming certainty that most storms pass if you set the table anyway. Even small domestic arguments carry the weight of impending farewell. A joking swipe about salad croutons or pantyhose in the hamper becomes a way to avoid or to poke at the vast unsayable thing everyone feels the family is about to experience, a before and after. Archie's resistance finds its fiercest expression in his campaign to redefine duty as proximity. He pictures Joey's mornings as an indictment of California's distance. What happens to the boy who wakes up and cannot see Grandma's window, who tells him stories, takes him to the park, presses a cold glass of milk into his hand in Archie's? Logic Love is a place you can walk to, and the inescapable subtext is that a plane ride turns love into something abstract, unreliable, and maybe even disrespectful. Michael hears it as manipulation, guilt, disguised as tradition, and Gloria, trapped between husband and father, tries to protect both promising happiness while blinking back tears that betray how much the word goodbye hurts when it becomes real. Meanwhile, Jefferson's parade of prospective buyers adds a layer of acidic comedy. Archie's sarcasm about one couple's stature and another's perspiring nose says less about them than about his own refusal to accept turnover. A house for Archie isn't just a piece of property. It's a museum of the arguments and reconciliations that make a family. Every stranger who crosses the threshold threatens to rearrange the exhibits. Yet the real bargaining is not over real estate. It's over who gets to define the family's future. Michael's career is no longer a theory scribbled in margins. It has a salary, a department chair, and a start date that requires courage from everyone, not just him. The emotional centerpiece arrives disguised as a dinner plan. Edith prepares a lavish Last Supper at home turkey stuffing broccoli with hollandaise homemade pie, an edible plea to slow time for one more night. At that exact moment, Michael's new boss, Professor Lyman King, invites the couple to the Plaza Hotel. It's the perfect symbolic fork in the road family table or professional table, the comfort of known rituals or the audition for a new life. Gloria wants both, of course. Edith, ever self-erasing, tries to pretend she doesn't mind if the Plaza wins. Archie does mind, and he weaponizes the fifth commandment with showman's timing, recasting honor as attendance and piety as staying for dessert. He's not merely keeping score, he's trying to prove that in the math of love, the people who change your diapers outrank the people who sign your contracts. What follows is a standoff only real families know. Gloria, shaken by her father's dramatics and her mother's barely disguised disappointment, can't bear to leave for the Plaza. Michael, desperate not to torpedo his first impression in Santa Barbara, tries to split himself into two men, dutiful son-in-law and ambitious professor. The negotiation fails because the choice isn't logistical, it's allegorical. The night collapses into hurt feelings, canceled reservations, and a tense meal at home, where every bite crunches like unspoken accusations. Yet around this table, through the awkward clatter of plates and sharper clatter of words, something essential surfaces: the truth that guilt can muscle people into staying put, but it can't make them at peace. That love must be chosen, not extorted. That even Archie's thunderclaps are mostly thunder without lightning. Across this turbulence, an idea appears that no one expects a renewal of vows. If the 10th anniversary trip to California will include a ceremony, why wait a year? Gloria proposes a living room re-wedding before they leave intimate, symbolic, and intentionally domestic. The Reverend Archie, misnames him of course, with characteristic clumsiness, arrives to officiate for both couples Michael and Gloria to reaffirm their future, Archie and Edith, to remind themselves of theirs. The passage the minister reads that oaks and cypresses must grow without blocking each other's sunlands like counsel, written precisely for a father who confuses protection with control. Even Archie, grumbling at first and treating vows like a vocabulary test, symbol of my vow, gets mangled into a comedy beat surrenders to the ceremony's pull. When he kisses Edith, it isn't just a husband's gesture. It's an admission that love survives only when it loosens its grip. The living room becomes a sanctuary, the old armchair an altar, the family size a choir. For a few shining minutes, they are not arguing about California. They are promising to carry each other even when they can't carry on as before. The final act is the leave-taking, aching funny, and utterly human. Suitcases crowd the hallway. The cab honks outside its meter, ticking the way any mother hears time tick when her child stands at the door with a plane to catch. Edith goes soft and radiant, equal parts proud and broken, blessing Joey with cookies and kisses while smoothing imaginary wrinkles on a future she can't iron flat. Gloria floods with tears, trying to say everything and nothing at once, hugging her mother as if the hug could postpone departures and arrivals alike. Michael does the last chore in the kitchen, trying to act normal, because acting normal is easier than admitting this is the scariest decision he has ever made. Archie staggers into honesty. For 8 seasons worth of quips and insults, he is hidden under a helmet of routines and prejudices, but a goodbye is harder to heckle than a news broadcast. He mumbles practical advice about postcards, the taximeter, and the price of airport rides, because logistics is the only language he can use without crying. Finally, he blurts what he has always concealed behind nicknames and mockery: I love you. It arrives crooked and late but true, the way some fathers must love, as if the words themselves were heavy and he had to push them uphill. Michael, who has long read Archie's contempt and called it what it was, answers with his own confession that Archie has been a father of a sort one impossible to please, but deeply present, and that he will take care of Gloria and Joey. They shake hands without ceremony, and for a breath the generations meet without barbs. The door closes. The room, which has never tolerated silence, suddenly learns it. Edith returns with a beer for Archie and finds him emptied out in his chair. The episode cycles back to the show's theme, a wry nostalgia. For those were the days, but it no longer means what it used to. Archie's brand of yesterday has always been a safe room, a place where men were men and decisions were simple. Now those days become a photograph in a frame, not a blueprint for tomorrow. The old comedy rhythms still beat Archie grouses about West Coast oceans where the sun goes down instead of up, but the punchlines feel like small umbrellas under a sudden rain. The camera lingers on Archie's face, and we realize that for all his bloviating, the man has performed the hardest act in family life. He has let go without letting go of love. As a triptych, these episodes map the range of feelings that surround a child's departure. Part 1 is denial wrapped in scorched earth humor. Archie refuses to accept the premise that children move away, and every argument circles back to a prophecy of disaster. Part 2 is bargaining disguised as etiquette. Who eats where becomes an ethical referendum on family loyalty, and every RSVP is a referendum on love. Part 3 is acceptance through ritual and honest speech. A renewal of vows, literal and otherwise, allows everyone to change the subject from leaving to loving, from map coordinates to promises, from the plaza to the parlor to the boarding gate. What makes it particularly resonant is that no character is reduced to a symbol. Edith is not merely the peacemaker. She is a woman whose recipes are a theology of presence. Gloria is not merely the bridge. She is the person who insists the two men she loves will not be allowed to destroy each other in a tug of war over her. Michael is not merely the young idealist. He is a young father who knows that ambition without gratitude curdles into arrogance. And Archie, never merely the bigot or the punchline, is revealed as a man terrified of emptiness, who must learn the difference between being needed and being loved. The script's comic audacity jokes about salad magnified, quibbles about pantyhose mispronunciations and malapropisms serves a dramatic structure as old as theater. The household is out of balance, news arrives, characters resist rituals, reset the order, and time does the rest. California functions as both destination and metaphor. To Michael and Gloria, it is a frontier of careers, and Sunlight a place where their family can find its own shape. To Archie, it is an invisible hand pulling his daughter beyond the neighborhood's protective gaze. The show refuses to resolve the tension by declaring one side morally superior. It shows instead how love makes demands on everyone. The young must risk distance to grow. The old must risk loneliness to bless that growth. By the end, the audience has laughed through arguments and squirmed through manipulations. What lingers is not the memory of a single joke, but the image of Archie in his chair after the door closes. The house is the same, the chair is the same, even the beer is the same, but the sound, no extra plate clattering in the kitchen, no Gloria calling from the stairs, no Mike teasing from the doorway reveals what has changed. Parenthood, the show suggests, reaches its summit, not in the power to prohibit departures, but in the grace to survive them. Edith's generosity makes that survivable. Gloria's courage makes it necessary. Michael's decency makes it honorable. And Archie's reluctant blessing, malformed but unmistakable, makes it real. If the theme song's refrain, "Those were the days," has often been Archie's license to dismiss the present, these episodes quietly revise it. Those were the days because they taught everyone how to love without possession, how to argue without annihilation, and how to step into the future with both a suitcase and a memory. California remains off-screen, as it should. This is not a travelogue, but a rite of passage. The screen goes black on a living room that has held more opinions than furniture. Somewhere above Queens, a plane banks toward the setting sun over the Pacific that Archie mistrusts. Back in the chair, a father learns that sometimes the bravest thing you can do for your children is to let them go, and then when the phone rings from far away, to pick it up and say, with all the awkward tenderness you can muster, "I love you." Send a postcard. The next stretch of the story moves like a house being packed in a hurry. Memories come off the walls first, then the easy objects, then the stubborn things that never wanted to move in the first place. The catalyst is still George Jefferson and his buyers, news delivered with his usual needlepoint of swagger and sarcasm. He's found a family ready to sign a detail that turns the Stivics lease into a countdown and converts their living room into a staging ground. Archie hates the timing, hates the buyers, and hates the feeling that events have learned to walk without asking his permission. And yet the facts refuse to blink. Even his barbs can't slow them down. Gloria tries to make grace out of logistics, while Michael maps the next 2 weeks with a professor's discipline. But the map keeps running through Queens, through Edith's kitchen, through Archie's chair. A geography of love that doesn't translate onto airline tickets or moving invoices. Jefferson exits with his trademark quip and a handshake that isn't really a handshake. Behind him, the space fills again with the old arguments about duty and distance, safety and ambition, home and horizon. The Bambini's comic shorthand for any family who isn't. This family hover as a possibility and a joke, while Archie jabs, Edith winces, and Gloria watches a father transmute grief into wisecracks because it's the only alchemy he knows. An interim truce arrives, disguised as a planned move back into 704 Hauser for a short spell until the plane takes them west. Nothing could be more ordinary, and nothing hurts more. The minute their suitcases cross the threshold, the house starts playing its old song-shared bathrooms. Vanished pantyhose burst pipes of sarcasm, schedules that never fit together even when they try. Michael and Archie fall into their ritual argument about culture, like two men stepping onto a well-worn stage. The Three Stooges battling Frankenstein on one side of the living room. Hamlet running around the castle with a ghost on the other. Archie champions high comedy with an axe to Curly's bald head. Michael dares to say the bard isn't crap. It's all very funny until it isn't, because beneath the shtick sits the unspeakable no room is big enough for two versions of truth, and the house can only keep one of them. That is why laughter here is never only laughter. It's a way to keep from saying goodbye too soon. The house becomes a choreography of small collisions. Joey's diaper rash needs a salve. A razor flashes too near a toddler. Pantyhose go missing and somehow wind up streaked across a mirror. The phrase "Last Supper" detonates in the middle of the kitchen like an unkind prophecy. Archie, who bears the pain of parting as if it were a Charlie horse in his calf, jokes about murder rates in California and the inscrutability of West Coast crimes as if danger itself were a reason to stay, as if risk were less a statistic, and bore a moral lecture. It makes Edith murmur Gloria stiffen and Michael roll his eyes while promising the professor that California is not a fantasy, but a plan, and that plans are what adults use to organize their courage. The phone call that matters belongs to Professor Lyman King. Dinner tonight at the Plaza. They're wrapped in good manners, and Lynn and Michael's future waits to meet him and to meet Gloria too. The excitement is real. So is the collision course with Edith's carefully prepared home feast, a goodbye meal she hoped would be the family's benediction. We can invite the professor here. Gloria suggests trying to stitch two worlds with one thread. Terrible idea, Michael counters, picturing a debate between Archie and a department chair. Archie versus Eric Severid as Gloria wryly frames it. Somewhere inside that tangle, love and guilt start wrestling again about the family has rehearsed for years. The living room becomes courtroom, and church in the same hour. Archie works guilt the way a trial lawyer works precedent, turning episodes into evidence, gestures into verdicts. He describes Joey's mornings in Queens with a detail that forces everyone to picture them: the small window, the view toward Grandma's place, the chocolate milk and cookies, the walks in the park, and the fairy stories at bedtime. He piles image upon image until the room itself seems to tilt in favor of staying. It is a remarkable performance and a manipulative one. He knows exactly where to aim the sharpest arrow. Even his darkest line, "two jugs on a mantelpiece," lands with the force of a curse he cannot take back. Everyone hears it. No one forgets it. And the silence it leaves behind is as heavy as a packed suitcase. Then comes the blow-up that makes decisions for them. In a tumble of needling jokes and wounded pride, words jump their tracks. The dinner table, designed to slow time and sweeten parting, becomes a battlefield where the weapons clatter. Archie mocks Edith, pleads Michael, hardens Gloria, draws a line. "This loony bin happens to be my father's house," she says, and the phrase does what blunt truth always does in this family: it puts the furniture back where it belongs. Archie threatens to hold the door open himself. Michael accepts the threat as permission. Gloria, the hinge between them, refuses to be crushed. The night fractures. The Plaza wins by default. The leftovers in Edith's kitchen become the relics of a ritual that could not happen. Underneath the noise lies a painful arithmetic. There was never going to be a dinner that could satisfy both a father's ache and a son-in-law's career. Someone had to choose a future. Someone else had to bless it or pretend to. But this family owns one more move, a ceremony to repair what dinner broke. The idea blooms in Gloria's mind with the stubborn light of a daughter who wants her husband and her father in the same photograph without blood on the floor. If they can't wait a year to renew vows in California, they will not wait at all. They will stage the vow renewal at home, where promises first learn to live. Edith, startled and shy, agrees. The Reverend Archie mangles his name with Broadway timing, is called. Everyone changes clothes without the house falling apart. And then, like a stage musical that remembers it, has a heart. The living room fills with a text about love that asks more of people than proximity: sing and dance together, but stand apart. Oaks and cypresses must grow without overshadowing each other. Edith hears it as permission to let Gloria go without dying of it. Gloria hears it as permission to love her father without staying for him. Michael hears it as a reminder that ambitious is only a virtue when it bows to gratitude, and Archie hears it as the hardest lesson he will ever be asked to learn. He grumbles at the words, barks at the vowels, fights the ring, insists on Archie instead of Archibald, but the meaning gets inside him anyway. The moment is clumsy and luminous at once, the exact combination that makes family rituals true. Cameras imagined or real click in everyone's mind when the Reverend calls for the picture and asks them to say a word that would have set off an argument an hour earlier. They manage a smile. They manage the kiss too, even if the officiant has to remind Archie that a kiss is not a raid. Laughter floats up and loosens the ceiling. And for a breath, the house is not a contested border between past and future, but a bridge strong enough to hold both at once. Morning comes carrying the sound that flattens Mother's a taxi horn. Everyone moves as if the floor has turned to water. Suitcase is Joey's toys, Edith's dish towel, still damp from one last wipe. Each object becomes a symbol you didn't know you were writing until you have to put it down. Archie tries to talk about money, $15 to the airport taximeter ticking because arithmetic is safer than love. Edith reaches for Joey with the softest steak a grandmother ever held. Gloria's voice breaks and then steadies. She promises postcards as if postcards were medicine. Michael makes a last practical circuit glass of milk for Joey, a check on the stove, a nod to the cab because doing something is the only way to keep from drowning in feeling. Then the one sentence everyone deserved and no one expected, I know you always thought I hated you, but I love you. The words arrive crooked shy, almost apologizing for themselves, and precisely therefore they are real. And because love responds most when it thinks it is least safe, the answer comes back clean, I love you. They shake hands like men who have fought for years and finally recognize the enemy was fear. The door closes on a house that has rarely known silence, and silence teaches it a new lesson. The last image lingers like a stage light, refusing to go dark. Edith returns with a beer and places it by Archie's chair. He is there, the chair is there, the beer is there, and the missing sounds make each object louder. The theme song rises in your head, but its words are no longer an excuse to live backward. They become a frame for looking forward without pretending the past didn't matter. Even Archie's reflexive grousing about the coast, murder rates rich kids with guitars, shrinks into a nervous tick rather than a prophecy. He has done the impossible thing for a man who built his identity out of refusal. He has blessed a future he cannot control. It did not look like a blessing while it was happening. It looked like a squabble, a Charlie horse, a botched ring, exchange a taxi fare. But blessings often do. What makes this goodbye more than furniture moving is how clearly it understands the quiet contract between generations. Children promise to build their lives without cruelty to the past that helped them. Parents promise to let their children go without punishing them for succeeding. That contract must be renewed as often as courage runs low. Here it's renewed in a living room where vows are read twice and interpreted 3 ways. In a kitchen where the aroma of a Last Supper tries to heal what words injured. At a door where hands have learned to hold on now, learn to let go. And if you want to understand Archie Bunker beyond the jokes, watch the small things. Watch the way he practices indifference and fails at it. Watch the way his insults are shaped like crib bars, supposedly confining, actually protective. Watch how his fake arguments about television hide the only true argument: he can't win time. Even his dig about California's mysteries gives him away. He is not afraid of crime statistics. He is afraid of phone calls from a different time zone that he cannot answer by walking next door. And if you want to understand Michael beyond his rhetoric, watch how he refuses to let ambition erase gratitude. He does not swagger out of Queens. He tiptoes knowing a wrong step will crush something you can't fix later. He jokes about fingernails and cocktail dresses, not because he's shallow, but because domestic comedy is the only currency most families accept at the border of change. He doesn't invite Archie to the plaza, not because he is ashamed, but because he is wise enough to keep a professional table from becoming a battlefield. He carries 2 promises toward the cab: that he will take care of Gloria and Joey, and that he will keep Queens inside California like a photograph tucked inside a wallet. Gloria, who is always the hinge and refuses to be the rope in a tug of war, finds the one gesture that dignifies everyone, a renewal of vows where no one has to be right to be loved. Her clarity is the plot's compass. When she calls the house a loony bin, she doesn't betray her father. She saves him. The straight naming of a thing is a form of love when euphemism has already done too much damage. And Edith, who pretends that cooking is just cooking and not theology, blesses each decision by making room for it even when that room is going to be empty tomorrow. If you want to know what grace looks like in a sitcom, it's the way Edith wipes down a counter after a fight as if she could erase pain with a clean rag. She can't, but she proves that it's worth trying. In this long leave-taking, even the show's running jokes become secular liturgy. The chair is an altar. The television is a choir loft where classics and slapstick argue about what counts as serious. The phone is a bell that calls people to confession and to dinner, sometimes at the same time. The door is a threshold where people learn the ancient ceremony of going away without vanishing. And the baby little Joey, with his rash and his milk and his giggles, becomes the program's final argument against despair. He cannot choose Queens or California. He doesn't have to. He will carry both in his story when he is old enough to tell it a grandfather who loved him in a language of jokes, and fussing a grandmother who loved him with cookies and casseroles, a mother who loved him with courage, and a father who loved him with promises he kept. There is an unavoidable melancholy in the way the camera and our own eyes keep returning to Archie after the door shuts. It is not pity. It is respect for a man who has completed a hard conversion. He has not changed political opinions. He has not advanced a theory. He has not even admitted he was wrong on the facts. He has done the more difficult thing. He has traded possession for blessing. That is a curriculum as rigorous as any university could offer, and the diploma is a quiet room. The audience laughs one last time because laughter is how we pay for the privilege of watching other families have their crises in our stead. But I suspect what most people carried out of this story wasn't the punchline. It was the shape of a posture, how to hold your hands when you're waving and letting go at once. Somewhere out of frame, a plane lifts through November air. Somewhere closer, a grandmother who has learned to smile while crying begins to tidy a kitchen that no longer needs to feed five. And in a living room that feels slightly too big, a man rehearses a new role, not the guardian at the gate, but the keeper of the porch light. He will switch it on some evenings when he doesn't have to. He will imagine the sound of a taxi years from now. He will picture the door opening and a small boy stepping in a little taller with a postcard's worth of California in his pocket. When that day comes, Archie will say something sideways, and Edith will translate it into love. They will all sit down, and someone will tell a story that begins, "Do you remember when?" That's how families survive geography. That's how this one will.